Getting ready to start.
Kick off.
Yeah, definitely. I'll let you introduce me and stuff like that. And I'll do some introduction talk before the video. I'll tell you when.
Let's pray. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
Amen.
Let's truly mean the words as we pray to our Father. Our Father, who
Lord in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Amen.
and Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit.
Amen.
Father Taylor.
Thanks, man. Do you need the chair?
No,
I can stand.
You're good.
Hey, everybody. I think everyone knows me. If you don't, Father Taylor used to be here at St. Rita's, used to be chaplain at Menard. Been in Rome for the past year, studying canon law and stuff, so I'll be back next year forever and ever. So I'm here for the summer, and it's, James's kind of last Bible study, I guess. So, sorry, I didn't mean to open that wound again. Anyway, so he asked if I'd just come and give a talk. I think particularly he asked me to talk on kind of a hot topic, something that's pretty prevalent, pretty touchy, but also it's kind of the white elephant in the room. Like we probably need to know something about it. And it's very recent, James, I'm sure you're like me, when I was a kid, I remember if I had to do a test or something, you had to fill out all your information. We still were in the bracket of saying age, whatever, sex, boy or girl. But how many of y'all have y'all had that, or has it not been? What does it say for y'all?
It says male, female.
But does it say gender or sex?
It says sex/gender.
Sex/gender. Okay, yeah. So that's something that's real. Because when I was a kid, it was no gender. It was just sex. About 2 years ago, I remember I had a friend who had called me up, and they didn't know what to do because their roommate was gay and had a crush on them, and they didn't know obviously how to address it and how to tell them no. And it was difficult because the person was like, "I can't help my feelings," and my friend was like, "I don't know what to do. Obviously I don't like them back, but how do I get out of this situation?" So it was really touchy. Just this past week, I had a priest friend of mine call me up, and we were talking, and his church is kind of in a really difficult situation because there was this boy dressed like a girl, came up to receive communion, was chewing gum, so they said, "We're sorry, we can't give you communion," and the family just blew up, and they made this big deal about it, and they're trying to get the media involved, really trying to crack down on the church because they say it's discrimination. They say they were discriminated against her because they didn't give communion because this is a transgender girl. So they're still on that. As of yesterday, one of the big television networks, CW, just announced that their television show Supergirl is now going to have a transgender superhero. The first time a big television series will have one of their main characters being transgender. Really, just, so many people can watch this. And so, as you probably can pick up, it's an issue that's very personal. For many people, it's extremely personal. It's in a very, very personal struggle, personal issue, personal desire, personal preference. But it's also a huge social thing, right? That it's being promoted by our society. It's really being pushed by the media. You want to show the trailer? Some of y'all might remember, maybe it was in 2015, there was a movie that came out called The Danish Girl. Anyone see that?
Yeah.
You saw it. Who else saw it?
I saw the trailer for it.
You saw the trailer. Okay, well, for those of you who haven't seen it, I'm just gonna show you the trailer. And keep in mind, this is a Hollywood movie, so it's not just some podunk guy trying to make a video about this. Podunk means poor, by the way.
I remember this like coming out, and I was like, "This is a thing."
Yeah.
Never heard of this.
What?
Well, fasten your seatbelts, because seriously, no lies, some of the things I will show you and talk about in this talk might be a bit disturbing. Like, just get ready for some of that. Obviously, I'm not going to go into like a lot of depths of some of like the, private stuff, but obviously a lot of this stuff can't be done without hitting on the issue of sexuality, biology, like all that stuff. And some of it's very sickening.
You ready?
I'm ready, man.
First time we met, she oppositioned me. She seemed so sure.
I was sure. He was so charming and mysterious. Is there something you'd like to tell me?
Is there something you'd like to know?
I'm your wife. I know everything. Could you help me with something?
You will not tell anyone about this.
Hello there. I'm going to call you Lily. I want to sketch you. Lily. We should go out tonight. Give us something different. Lily. You're exquisite.
You're different from most girls. I feel I need to ask your permission before I kiss you.
Exactly what happened last night?
There was a moment when I wasn't me. There was a moment when I was just
Lily. But Lily doesn't exist. We were playing a game.
something changed.
He's lost his way. He needs a friend.
Can you help? I think Lily's thoughts. Her dreams. She was always there.
I need my husband. I need to hold my husband.
Love. You're right. The fact is, I believe that I'm a woman.
And I believe it too.
Surgery has never been attempted before.
You're my own life. It could kill you.
It's my only hope. This is not my body. I have to let it go. I love you because you're the only person who made sense of me. Who made me possible.
Okay. So that's a movie that came out in 2015 based on the true life story of a man named, what was his name again? It was Henry Wagner. He was from Denmark in the 1920s, and as you can see, when he was about 36 or so, believed he was a woman, and was the first time that a man went through a transsexual surgery. He went through a total of 5 surgeries. The last one ultimately killed him because his body rejected the uterus that was put in him. And still to this day, Lily, the woman he believed he was, has become kind of one of the spokespersons for this. Her writings in her journal have been kind of like the inspiration for many people who identify that way, who feel that struggle. And so it's a very, as you can see, it's a very strange reality. For many of us, we can look at something like that and right away say, like, it's crazy. He is insane. Something was wrong with him. Something must have, gone off. It's one thing to say that. It's one thing to say that reality and to identify the disorder, to identify what's wrong about it. It's another thing, though, to really, again, have that person in front of you and to address it. How do we talk about these real people that, again, this is something that's so real for them that sometimes it causes them to go through surgeries, change their whole life, all that. You want to show the other one?
Yeah.
So there's another video I'm going to kind of show a little bit of again, so part of my talk is going to be addressing the issue, addressing the problem, addressing that reality, what's really behind it. The other half, though, is going to be about how do we deal with it? How do we, particularly as Christians, how are we called to address this to people we know? How do we address the societal issue? What do we do? How do we find some guidance in all this?
Is an online personal styling service. It's great that I can make sure that it fits within my
you'll know when it gets to the stopping point.
That little church had this big cross over the altar that was backlit, and it was always lit. And I would go out there at night, and I would lay on the floor under that cross, and I would just beg God to please, I can't stop being gay. I can't change how I feel. If this is wrong, if this is what you don't want, then you have to change it, because I can't. And nothing ever changed.
Being a homosexual and a lesbian is a ticket to hell. We ignore what in the Bible about all sorts of things. Hey, Sam, wake up. You're a stupid motherfucker. You turn into something like you just need wicked and love. I'm a born-again Christian. That's what I am. The second you see your son dropping the limp wrist, you walk over there and cut that wrist. Man up. Give him a good punch. Homosexuality.
Sorry about that.
It's abnormal, it's against nature, it's shameful, it's vile, it's wicked. It's simply God's fixed determination to punish the wicked in hell for their sins. Because he can.
All right. So that video is primarily addressing homosexuality, but a lot of the things I'm going to talk about in this talk will intersect because it's dealing with people's identification, their sexual drives, their sexual orientations, attractions, and things people feel they're born with and they feel they can't change. But also the underlying issue of how do we deal with something we know we see as wrong, but not tell the person they're wrong, or that's the big thing is they feel judged, they feel they're condemned, but we still can't say what they're doing is right. So what are we going to do? What do we do? So that'll be like kind of the second half of the talk I wanted to get at. So the first thing, like I said, I wanted to get at again was the issue at hand. What is this issue? Where did it come from? What is really happening? What's really going on? By and large, a lot of people believe many of this stuff is a phase. It's a phase that's going to fade out eventually, but its effects are going to be long-lasting. Again, I mean, as we'll see in a little bit, you have widespread education going on about this. You have children being brought up in families of like two males, one saying he's a woman, the other one saying he's the father. And then you have people having sex changes, which is most of them, it's irreversible, and they're left scarred for the rest of their life. So it's important for us to address because it's becoming very, very prevalent. It's becoming it's a reality that all of us probably at some point are going to have to face in some way. So yeah, again, where did it come from? Let's talk about that. Before I talk a little bit about, I guess, the reality of the situation, I want to talk about what does society say the issue is, because that is a completely different story. That is really one of the main issues, is what is society, what is the media making this whole thing out to be. So again, like I said, all this kind of came out with society promoting this term gender rather than sex. It is, we say, a social construct. So it's made by society and movement. Gender is referring to the ability to distinguish a person and their orientation and their attractions apart from their biology, their body, and how they're physically constructed. Transgender, which is related to this, transgender is anyone who defies the social expectations regarding gender. Okay? Both of those terms probably sound a bit ambiguous, right? Okay, girls, raise your hand if you've ever worn pants or used a power tool. All right, yeah, pretty much all of you. Guys, raise your hand if you've ever, held a baby or let your hair grow out longer than a buzz cut. Right. Okay. Nobody perfectly is going to fit a gender category. None of us are going to perfectly fit into that. So we all kind of get out of what society would say is the male gender, the female gender. Nobody fits it perfectly. So what you can see with this, there is a reality to this that's very personal. It's kind of your determination. Do you feel you fit in that category? Do you feel you fit that way? Okay, well then you don't have to be boxed into it. You don't have to be limited to it. It's very ambiguous. And because society kind of keeps it ambiguous, it also allows people that freedom to choose and to kind of, well, I don't feel I necessarily fit all those categories in the male gender, so then therefore maybe I'm female, or maybe I could switch, or maybe I'm both. Kind of get into that a little bit too. So this is also, basically what society recently has been promoting is, it's your freedom. You're free to choose. You can do whatever you want, whatever makes you feel good, whatever makes you feel happy. It's kind of society's thing. That you're not called to be limited. This is spawned out of what we call a culture of narcissism that particularly America has grown up in. Narcissus, if y'all are familiar, in Greek mythology, he was this man who was walking by a river, and he got struck by one of Cupid's arrows, saw himself in the river, fell in love with himself, but also could never grasp, could never obtain that person he loved. He could never, reach into the river and grab himself. So his whole life was basically him yearning after himself. And so that's kind of what we live in America, this narcissism. Narcissism has been diagnosed as a psychological issue. So people psychologically can be a narcissist. When they have excessive desires for themselves, excessive, attractions to themselves, vanity, all that stuff. But it also becomes a huge social construct. Socially, we see it in that the entire world basically becomes my mirror. That it's my mirror. I can look at the world and see myself. What am I going to reflect in the world? That's narcissism. Narcissism also kind of sees normally we would say the story of my life is a straight line. They would see it as just kind of it's a bunch of dashes. It's a bunch of just separate dashes. And I'm disconnected from my past, but I'm also free from the consequences of my future. So the choices I make, if I want to do this now, it's fine. I don't have anything behind me in my past that I have to base this on. I don't have any consequences of the future that I'm going to have to pay up for. That's the narcissism that's kind of grown up. I don't want to get too much into where that came from, but even in like Russia during communism, this was coming out. It was sort of communism's desire to sort of get the people to rebel against the state, all that stuff. So I don't want to get too much into that. So that's sort of, again, like what it's coming from, this narcissism. And it's put out by these activists. So all these social people, all these activists, these kind of huge groups that want to make these changes on the base level, on our level. They're very spontaneous. They're very sporadic with their arguments. Because again, I really just have to make an argument for right now, for why you should do it. I don't have to base it on any facts in the past. I don't have to base it on any evidence. I don't even have to worry about any consequences of the future. I just have to worry about convincing you right now. That's their goal. That's the society we live in. And so that's how they are able to present their arguments so convincingly, but also they can be very easy to tear down if someone were to really approach them. But at the same time, they surround themselves with this kind of sacred wall of discrimination. You can't discriminate against us. You can't discriminate against. If you say that, you're discriminating, and I don't have that right. And so they're very defensive. They're very protective, because ultimately, deep down, they know that they're wrong. Enough examination of their points, they'll fall through. So part of what I will do, I will kind of unravel some of their their arguments and everything. Another thing that they really promote with all this is when they say that, a transgender boy, which we would say is a girl trying to be a boy or a girl dressed like a boy, they would say it actually is a boy. So that's one of their big things. If you're a transgender boy, or if you're a transgender girl, or if like it's me as I am and I think I'm a girl, then I actually am a girl. That's what they promote. So they say we're actually dealing with a girl who's trapped in a boy's body, right? Because I think that's what my thought is. That's what I feel. So that's kind of the problem, is they promote it and they address that issue. They kind of go in that way, that we're actually dealing with a girl here. And society, again, wants to kind of break away from this sort of like, there's an order, there's one or two classes, and they just want to say there's a variety out there, right? Like I said, a lot of this comes from the fact that they notice and recognize problems in people's lives. People have problems, people have these struggles, have these issues, and society doesn't know the answer, so they, again, try to make up a consequence. They try to make up a solution. This is what John Paul II says happens when you eclipse, first of all, when you eclipse God from society, when you put him out, it makes everything else dark. So all the problems and sufferings that people go through, nobody knows where it came from, no one knows where it's from, so people can just say, well, the reality is you're born that way, and it's really a good thing, and don't feel bad about it, and don't feel like you have to change. No, you're not wrong. Just go with it. There must be something good about it. So that's sort of like their, what they attach to, and what they're really where their problems fall from is they never get to the real issue. They never do. Also, again, all of this comes from these political social movements, not from science. Okay, none of the things they're promoting, none of the gender things comes from science or biology. Okay, I'm going to go into that a little bit more later on. But just keep in mind, like I said, their whole platform is just these social pressures, these social movements they're trying to push. The other thing, it's really important to know is that, especially with this whole gender thing and the whole like homosexual thing, is they're starting to address it to younger and younger people. By the time a kid is 3 years old, they are saying he or she is old enough to determine his sex. A kid does not even know what it means to be the sex I'm in. So, how can a 3-year-old say that they know what it means to be a sex that they're not? Okay? So, so it's very, very kind of strange. So, they start off with this education of the youth. Can you pull up the gender unicorn? So they start off with kids in preschool, and they'll just wait for it. Yeah, like I said, you're not Chris Ozzy. Yeah. So this is the gender unicorn. This is the thing that they are giving this out to like preschool kids. It also comes as in a coloring book, so you can color your unicorn how you want. But this is kind of the breakdown of how it goes. So there's your gender identity. So you, again, can identify as male, female, woman, girl, a male, a boy, a man, or other category, all right? Whatever you want to be. Then there's your gender expression. So kind of like how do you express? So there's kind of a difference between... there's kind of like how you're going to express yourself. And that's, again, male, masculine, feminine, but also other category, whatever you want to do. So sex assigned at birth, all right? So you're either born with a female or a male part. Okay, at least they kind of got that right. But now there's this other intersex thing, which, okay, I don't even know where they came up with that. But as you can see, they've kind of broken it all up. Like, we're just like a hodgepodge of these different parts that are sort of living together. And then there's your physical attraction. So sort of like when you physically want to get in a relationship with somebody, who do you want to be in bed with, essentially? Who do you want to get in the bed with? Woman, man, or other gender. All right. But then there's your emotional attraction. So how do you emotionally feel you're drawn to? Who do you feel you're emotionally drawn to? Again, women, men, or other gender. So this is, again, what they're kind of promoting to kids to help them sort of like learn. To learn. Oh, that actually works out really better. Sorry, I'm on Instagram Live, by the way, so the audience at large know what's going on. So yeah, that's kind of their big promotion is starting off with the youth. So again, like preschool, kindergarten, they're starting to teach kids about this, that you can start choosing. By age 9, you're put on puberty blockers. So by age 9, they start putting these kids on puberty blockers that block their natural body's production of its hormones, its development. At age 12, they start giving them the hormones that they want. So if it's a boy who wants to be a girl, they start giving him estrogen. If it's a girl, they give her testosterone. By the time they're 18, they're ready for a sex change. So all this is kind of, they have this whole program set up. So these children, at very young ages, are not only promoted and presented with this thought, but they're kind of almost given like a plan of attack, like that they can start working on this and start moving in a direction. I mean, before they're even like old enough to vote or anything like that. So, it's their promotion, this whole thing they're kind of putting out there. Also, in places like California, it's against the law for you, even if you're a parent, to try and dissuade a child from thinking he's a different gender. It's against the law. You would go to jail if you were ever caught telling your little boy who says, "Mom, I kind of feel like a girl." "No, honey, you're actually a boy." You could go to jail just for that. That's in California. It's also becoming a thing where in classrooms, if there's a kid in the class who is also in that mindset, none of the other kids are allowed to be told, none of the parents are to be informed that this kid is actually going through this, but that this kid is allowed to make his choices and to identify with whatever sex. So you could be on a field trip and y'all have to spend the night in a hotel, and Josie goes into her room and there is a roommate who's a boy because he thinks he's a girl, and she had no pre announcement about that, and she can say absolutely nothing about it and has to stay in that room the entire weekend with this boy simply because he says, "I think I'm a girl." You could walk into the showers, and again, you're showering, and out comes a boy who says he's a girl. All this stuff is kind of their right, you could say, to choose. Whoopsies. Where is it? There's all this pressure that's made to get people to change, but there's, again, nothing else offered. There's no other option that, again, you might have a struggle, a problem, anything like that that's never addressed. Kelly, you want to come up? So Kelly's about to go to college in where?
In Boston.
Boston, so up in Massachusetts. Tell them a little about your situation, how you might be able to introduce yourself to your college. What's your name?
Stephen.
Okay, and what pronouns are we going to use for Stephen?
Him, he.
Or?
They.
There you go. Everyone claps, and Stephen sits back down. And that's how it is I'm free when I go to my college to say whatever I want to be, and you have to respect that, and you have to address me about it. In New York City, if I were to call Stephen Kelly, or if I were to call Stephen she, I could get fined $500,000 just because I did that, because I'd be discriminating, and I wouldn't be giving Stephen the opportunity to freely develop and freely choose. So, that's, again, just more of this kind of social program that's out there, and again, trying to address this issue. So the other thing, that society will tell us is, like, hey, don't worry about it. Like, mind your own business. They're not hurting you. Don't worry about it. It's not going to hurt anybody. You don't have to change your ways. Just let them be them. Okay? We can't live in half of a jungle, y'all. We can't live in half a jungle. You're either in the jungle or you're not. There's no halfway. You can't say you live in a safe neighborhood and there be a notorious serial killer on your block. You don't live in a safe neighborhood, okay? People can tell you live in a safe neighborhood, but no, you don't, okay? So if we live in a nation that is presenting this and promoting this and is changing all this, and they're redefining gender and all these things, it does affect us. It does hurt us because it is redefining everything. It's really changing everything. So it is affecting us, and it is harming us, even if they say, don't worry about it. So I'm going to get down a little more into sort of, again, like the breakdown of the real issue. So gender identity, again, like I said, is a social construct. It's constructed by society. So how do I determine mine? If society has put these out there, how does that actually affect me? Again, how can I say that I am something that I'm not? As in, like, how can I say, like, I believe I'm actually a girl, but I don't know what it is to be a girl? I'm clearly saying I'm not a girl, but I believe I'm a girl. That doesn't make sense if you sit down and think about it. I believe I'm a girl, but I don't actually know what it is to be a girl. And I'm claiming right now I'm not a girl, but I believe I'm a girl. I mean, you get it? Like, how can you know that you are something without a shadow of doubt? You are something that you are also claiming that you're not. That's, there's a little bit of a contradiction there. The society will say that it's something that's innate, so you're born with it. It's stable, but they also say it's fluid. You can choose. You can choose whatever you want to be. But then how is it innate? How are you born with it if you're able to choose whatever you want to be? So again, there's a contradiction there. They say it's a spectrum, but then they also say it's male or female or this, that, but like a spectrum. So like spectrum kind of means there's like categories of like grades. That also doesn't make sense. So this is another thing, it says that it comes basically from personal belief, personal feelings, personal sentiments of like, I think I'm a girl, whatever. And therefore I can determine my sex, my orientation and stuff. But how is it that I can't determine my height? How can, if I were to say like, guys, I think I'm a girl, probably everyone would be like, okay, wow, yeah, sure. If I were to say, I believe I'm a midget born in a tall man's body, would that make sense? No. If I were to say, I believe I am an 80-year-old man born in a young person's body, would that make sense? No. So why is it, again, that my personal beliefs, my personal feelings can determine something else that's tied to my body, that's tied to the entire construction of who I am. Why can I say that about my gender? I can't say it about my age, my height, any of those other things. And so they'll say also that, however you're born is unimportant. It's just plumbing. This is kind of like the word. It's unimportant. Doesn't matter what you're born, what's born between your legs. That's not important. But what is the solution ultimately? To change your gender, to change your physical sex, right? So the problem comes from, there's probably there's the body, and there's what you feel, and there's your thoughts, and the body doesn't really matter, but the solution, what is it? It's to kind of change the body. So it's like they're saying one thing, but then it's like they're contradicting themselves. It's sort of like, the body doesn't matter at all. Don't worry about it. It doesn't matter how you're born, how you're physically born, but at the same time, it matters when it comes to making the solution. It matters what sex do you want to become. So again, there's a bit of a contradiction with that. Again, when we talk about belief, like I believe I'm a man in a woman's body, I believe I'm a girl, whatever, it's a misconstruction of belief itself. We as Christians, we talk about belief, but we can only talk about belief because we talk about something real, right? I can only say I believe in Jesus because Jesus was real. Jesus actually was God. If Jesus wasn't actually God, my belief, no matter how strong it was, wouldn't matter. It really, in the end of the day, wouldn't matter. It wouldn't change anything, and I couldn't change the reality because I believed. So that's the other thing, is like belief and feelings don't have the power really to change reality. Reality is reality. It's what's real. Okay? And so believing is believing what's there, but if you're believing in something that's not there, okay, it doesn't have any weight. Okay, so again, people say, like, I believe that I am actually, this or that. I believe that I'm a man in a woman's body. Okay, that's not the reality. If that's not really there, then your belief doesn't have the power for you to change it. They do try to bring in science. They do try to bring in some aspects of biology, chromosomes, different things like that. But at the same time, they try and use that to push sort of that deeper identity, that deeper, something that science can't necessarily prove, something that's deeper in the human person. Most of the time you'll hear of, I think probably the biggest argument is, you'll hear of these people who like, I never felt I fit in, I never, felt it was right, but then I started taking testosterone, and I started feeling better all of a sudden, or I started wearing a woman's dress, and I felt at peace and all this stuff. Or I started going down this road and I just felt so much peace. And that's kind of like society's like big, banners. All these people are getting relief. Yay, woohoo. Okay. Well, a couple of things are at play with that. One, anytime a person is dealing with any kind of disorder, any kind of anxiety, depression, or whatever, if you give them steps to take, if you give them a goal to work towards, they're going to feel better. That's basic counseling. Any person who is struggling, has any kind of like difficulty, if they have like a task they can work for, if they have some way they can feel they're in control by doing something, that's going to give them some momentary relief, okay? So while they're doing it, they're going to feel that comfort. They're going to feel that, that ability to get better. They're getting better because they're taking these steps. Not everybody is alleviated. Not everyone feels better. So let's say 40% of society, that's actually that's much bigger than actually the actual percentage. But let's just say, maybe 40% of society identifies with something, whether it be gender dysphoria, transgender, homosexuality, whatever. And they go through the changes, they do all this stuff. Statistics say only about 4% feel any alleviation of their symptoms. Those people who before felt depressed, felt sad, felt they didn't fit in, felt they were a different person, yada, yada, yada. Once they do all this stuff, only about 4% actually say they felt any kind of change in their symptoms. Most actually felt it got worse. Most felt their depression got worse. Most felt their sense of being in the wrong body got worse. And many of them ended up committing suicide. In the United States, the percentage of people who commit suicide is about 15% of society, but 40% of those who commit suicide are people who struggle with transgender issues or some sort of sexual struggle. Society won't tell you about all that, though. All these agendas and these activists won't tell you about that. What you'll probably hear about is things like 95% of people, come out successful from all this surgery, from all these promotions. What they're talking about is 95% of the surgeries are effective. 95% of the surgeries aren't botched. So that means there's 5% of the surgeries that are botched, meaning this person tried to get their body changed and it didn't work, and now their entire body is scarred for life. They're sterile. They're stuck in this between bodies, and society won't tell you about them. There's a lot of people out there who have converted. They've turned back. They're called detransitioners. So they're people who have turned back. There's actually a girl, if y'all ever want to look her up, her name is Carrie Stella. She has a YouTube channel and she has a ton of videos. Long and the short, when she was 19, she transitioned to be a boy. Haircut, breast cut off, testosterone, all that stuff. She lives in Oregon, which is one of the most transgender-friendly places in the U.S., and she felt no peace. Again, she went to these gender therapists, and they told her what to do. They told her all the steps to take and everything, and she did it all. And once she had her sex change, they were gone. They left her. Nobody had any follow-up sessions with her. Nobody asked her how she was feeling about it. Nobody cared if she was happy. Nobody cared to do anything else with her. And eventually it all faded, and she felt sick again. She felt she didn't fit in. She felt back in the same boat. So she detransitioned. She went back as much as she possibly could to being a girl. And so she makes these videos, and she's got them all over YouTube, just kind of trying to address this issue and, kind of pointing all this stuff out of how they will, they will never tell you about someone like her. The transgender movement will never tell you of someone like her who transitioned back. So there are all those people out there, and there's tons of stories. There's another guy, I think he just likes to be addressed as DWD, because he likes to keep his identity secret. But essentially, when he was a little boy, like probably 3 or so, he used to go to visit his grandma. His grandma never affirmed him as a boy, but used to dress him up as a girl and would praise him, how pretty he looked. And so he grew up just kind of with that in the back of his head. He dated, he was maybe not the most physically active boy. He was very intelligent, but he wasn't physically active, so he kind of felt a little like maybe he didn't fit in. But he was dating, felt attracted to women. He gets to college, people start talking about this whole transgender thing. He kind of looks into it, and after like the second meeting, they were putting him on hormone blockers and estrogen and all this stuff. And also, he transitioned, But then, again, later on, he never felt that those issues of insecurity from his grandmother and his parents were never helped. And he never felt true peace. So he transitioned back, started seeing a counselor, and the first time he saw the counselor addressed that issue, addressed the issue with his grandma, and he felt peace. He felt like relieved of those symptoms that he was going through. So there's a ton of people out there like that who've given their testimonies. Okay, so what in the end actually is the issue? Again, because like we can talk about society, but we also do talk about the personal thing, people who feel this, and how do we actually in the end determine someone's gender? How do we actually determine what someone is? So in the end, it is determined by a person's sexual structure and organization. Their sexual structure and organization, okay? That isn't just meaning what's between their legs. It's not meaning if it's a boy who doesn't like to shoot guns. That is the entire structure and organization of the entire person, okay? That's what determines if a person is male or female. How their body essentially is structured for sex, okay? Sex, again, isn't just one isolated event with one organ in the body. That's the other thing we have to remember. Sex is not just this one little event that happens once and it's just all I use is my penis and my vagina. Okay, it's not just that. It is your entire body from the moment you were conceived is constructed and organized according to a certain sex. On the chromosome level, I'm sure y'all studied this in science, males are XY chromosomes, girls are XX. So essentially, if someone lacks a Y chromosome, they're female. If they have that XY, they are male. Okay? From that moment, from the moment of the conception, their body starts forming in a certain way. Okay? Everything is organized in this person. Everything, not just from the genitalia, but their genitalia then starts producing the testosterone or the estrogen for their body, and their body starts forming a certain way. Okay? Boys start developing broader shoulders, girls more narrow hips, men with stronger hands and more muscular structure, women of a more tender body, more of a caring person, yada yada. But even on like psychological levels, the way the minds are wired become different. Men, because they are structured more for kind of for not just for reproduction, for life that is not carrying life within them, as in they help with conception, but they're not they don't carry the child with them. Their minds and their bodies are more geared for recognizing more general constructs, more separate realities, whereas women, because the conception of the child is literally within them, things are more tied, right? I mean, you'll probably have seen the story. The comedian, he did like the men's brains versus the women's brains, and the men's brain is like a whole bunch of little boxes, and so like when the dude is fishing, he opens the fishing box, and that's all he's doing. There's nothing else. It's not touching any other boxes. When he's doing nothing, he opens the nothing box. He's doing nothing, and nothing is nothing, and don't disturb the nothing box. A woman's brain is like this big bowl of spaghetti, and it's all interchanged around, and so like the reason why he's not spending time with her is because he doesn't like her, and because her friends aren't with her, and her friends are prettier than her, and it's all like tied together, because like even when she's conceiving, that life is tied to her. She's physically feeling that within her. Even some of the psychological issues. Women are more prone to depression. Men are more prone to anxiety. So there's a lot of issues that biologically people are geared for. Again, as we grow up, as our entire body is structured, the whole chromosomal history of your body is geared to that. Even whenever people have sex, it's not even that one moment, but there's an entire history that your body has gone through to prepare for that moment. I mean, I'm not going to go into it, but we all have at this point probably, hopefully, been through puberty and understand like what happens to your body distinctly, what's going on with that. Your body starts preparing itself, and your body starts forming itself. Even prepare those chromosomes that are exchanged in sex come from a history, from a building up of history. It's the man who actually is the only one that can transfer the Y chromosome. So women don't have it, but only men can transfer the Y. So essentially, you could kind of blame, all the guys in here. We can blame our dads because we're here, because it's from the male that we receive that Y chromosome. So that's a whole kind of like biological history that has led up to that sexuality. So our entire bodies are formed in that way. Okay? Now, there are people that are born with some sort of a mix-up. Okay? About one in 5,000 people, so keep that statistic in mind, 1 in 5,000 people are born with some kind of mix-up maybe. Maybe sometimes what you'll get like an XYX. So they'll have an extra X chromosome. or there'll be like an XXY or some kind of variation of that. And so sometimes what that does is it causes them to be born with maybe some sort of an abnormality. Okay, there's some sort of abnormality, but even in that, there's still one of the other. They can still be determined as either, a male who developed some female characteristics, or a woman with female characteristics. There's a lot of kind of science and biology to that part. I won't really get into it because it was confusing even for me when I was studying up on it. But essentially, scientists can tell and can determine pretty easily. We're either dealing with a man who's born with some female characteristics, woman with a male's. And so again, the real issue of determining it is your sexual structure and organization. It's a holistic view. Your entire body, your entire construction from conception till this moment determines who you are. So again, I have longer eyelashes and thinner lips than my dad. Okay? That doesn't make me a woman just because I have some of those traits. Little things like that. Nobody's, again, going to perfectly fit into one or the other of any of those categories. Everyone's going to have a little of something. But again, I have to look at the entire construction of myself, right? All right? I don't like to hunt. I have sensitive hearing. I don't like to shoot guns. Okay? I never really hunted. That doesn't mean I'm actually a girl in a boy's body. That's just one characteristic. It's one little trait. Okay? It doesn't determine everything. We have, again, so it's looking at that entire structure. So that's important. Just in your minds, keeping back what determines it: sexual structure and organization, but not just the genitalia, the entire formation of the person. Understanding the purpose and the function, and that also makes sense if you kind of look at like other functions of the body. So again, like, when I say that structure, organization, and I say I'm not just talking about the genitalia, well, let's look at the cardiovascular system, right? Let's kind of step out and talk about the cardiovascular system. My whole body is essentially geared and built around that reality. But at the same time, if my heart is, not working right, basically if let's say my heart should be beating 30 beats a minute, and I beat, 200 beats a minute, okay? Would I be free to say, hey, my heart's just different from yours. You don't have the right to tell me there's something wrong with my heart. No, there's something wrong with your heart. You shouldn't be at rest beating 200 beats per minute. Something's wrong with your heart, okay? We would diagnose that as a disorder, right? Something disordered in your heart, in your cardiovascular system. So we can't just say like, oh, well, he was born different, or she's different. She was born that way, but she's different. It's like, no, it's a disorder, okay? You're one or the other. You're born a certain way. It's not just kind of saying, oh, well, it's different. No, that's what they want to argue, but the reality is what we call disorder. So, Jack the Kaiser. Sorry. Yeah, so a lot of this, again, why people feel this way, is based on false assumptions. So it's basically an assumption someone has taken and believed and has become so strong that it's affected their behavior and their ability, okay? Another example, anorexia, okay? What is anorexia? It's somebody who is in a regular body, a thin or moderately sized body, but they believe they are extremely fat. They believe they are too fat, and that assumption and that belief becomes so strong that it starts affecting the way they live. It starts affecting their actions. What would we say about that? We'd say that's a disorder, right? We wouldn't say, oh, they're just different. No, bless you. Bless you. So there's another one. It's called Body Integrity Identity Disorder. So BIID. If you ever want to look this up on the internet, it's actually very interesting. So Body Integrity Identity Disorder is a condition in which the people do not perceive their body parts as part of their body. They either believe that they don't have these limbs or their limbs are paralyzed. And so they will either go to a doctor to have them amputate their limbs, or they'll put themselves in wheelchairs and like lock off their legs and stuff. And they're a fully functioning person, but they will believe that this is not part of my body. And they'll go to doctors to try and get him cut off. Or the doctors, if he's worth his weight in salt, will kind of talk to them and tell them, okay, that's not right. Your body is fully functioning, and that is part of your body. So again, when we talk about that sex change and kind of people going with a certain sex or gender, it's not going to change those deeper intellectual or psychological or biological realities. We would say it is metaphysically, so it's like metaphysically impossible for me to become or to say I'm a girl because biologically it's impossible. I can never fully become a girl because biologically it can't happen. And so metaphysically we would say it can't happen. I could not say I'm a woman trapped in a man's body. No, you're not, because biologically that's not the reality, and so that can't happen. There is no way that can happen. So it's a culmination of the entire history. There's so again, kind of going farther back in time, there's this old belief called Gnosticism. I'm not expecting y'all to know remember any stuff anyway, but it was kind of this belief that like your soul and your body are two separate realities. Your soul is good, your body is bad, and your soul is kind of trapped in your body and is like, help me, I need to get out. And so your whole life is essentially like the soul trying to like pray and trying to like escape the body. That's Gnosticism. Christianity, we don't believe that because that's not true. That's not what happens. It's not the whole like God's like up in heaven. He's like trying to pick what soul and puts it in this body and sends it out there. And he's like, oh whoops, I accidentally put a girl soul into a boy body. Sorry about that, guys. Better luck in the afterlife. It's not that reality. We say the soul is created for that body at the moment they are conceived. That's why as Christians we don't believe in abortion, because the moment there is that conception, the moment that biologically there is a new organism that begins to form, the moment that biologically this new life starts to form, that's when the soul enters in. And that soul is attached to that body, animates and informs that body. So there's no such thing as a boy's soul and a girl's soul. Your soul is your soul because God placed it in you at the moment of your conception. So we don't believe in, again, this kind of ability of like, I'm trapped in the wrong body. It's like, no, it's just insane, man. Okay, whatever. Is that kind of clear of sort of like, that's the issue, that's kind of the reality of things? I mean, anyone like, I just have no clue what you were talking about this whole time? Anybody? Okay. So that's, again, the issue. That's sort of what's at hand. How do we deal with it again? Because, as you probably know, if maybe you've had someone who's dealt with anorexia or any of these other things, or maybe you have dealt with someone who's dealt with some sort of one of these gender issues or some kind of sexual orientation, for them it is very real. And some of them it is from some tragedy in their past, some trauma. They don't know how to get over it though, okay? It is for them a struggle. That's the word that we as Christians like to use, is a struggle. Because it's a wrong thing, it's a difficulty, but it's a fight as well. Many of them don't want to give into it, but they're being pressured to give into it. So I want to this time show some more of a video. And this is kind of like the Catholic Church's address to homosexuals and how are we called to approach them and to address this issue. It'll be a minute 20 with 57 seconds. I kind of showed the beginning of this video earlier. It was the one kind of by Black Stones with the people like fighting all the homosexuals. It's called The Third Way. The video is very long. It's about like 40 minutes. But if y'all want to watch the whole video, I highly recommend it. It's very, very good. It kind of takes several people and their testimonies and then in the end kind of like gets to what is the church's answer. So right now we'll kind of show the
What's the time again?
Online personal
20
styling
minutes and
service.
57
It's great
seconds.